Hello and welcome to Tuesday. I mentioned this last night and I got very close to beating this game, but today we're talking about this game, Zero Time Dilemma. This is the third game in the Zero Escape series. I would say the known area games, but the first two are the known area games. Well, this one, Zero Time Dilemma, is the third in the trilogy. The first two games in the series, 999 and Virtue's Last Reward, are both prequels to this game, and while this game doesn't really follow along traditionally how the previous games did, it's got its whole thing going for it. So, I try to keep things kind of spoiler free, but I feel like this game, I'm gonna break that tradition. So, if you're wanting to play this game, go ahead and play it. Feel free to click off this video, but here is my pretty much unfiltered thoughts of this game. First off, wow, it's a trip. It's a lot gorier, it's a lot more visceral, it's a lot more intense than the other two titles. While 999 kind of kept things tamer, Virtue's Last Reward kind of amped things up a bit. This one just went off the rails and be like, hey, let's just make things incredibly bloody, gory, and just go nuts with it. The story goes a bit off the rails, and it does so in a variety of ways. The first thing is that while traditionally in the previous two games you had a set timeline where you would make a decision, any decision, and it would then go to another split path, and you can hop back and forth between any path. This one takes things slightly different. There are a variety of different story beats. So initially you need to make a decision, like the first game, and if you fail this decision, well, if you fail it, if you choose one path, you choose a specific way, certain things happen, and that's that. Now, here's one fatal flaw that I encountered. I played this in a very different way. So, I did not realize that the first decisions that you make in the game, where it's basically you're playing as nine characters who are split into three different groups of three. You can choose to either save them, or you can betray them. Basically, that's it. It's a voting system. You vote one way or you vote the other way. I just voted, I didn't go with the story, what it was telling me to do. I just did, hey, let's vote for the left one, and then go back, and then vote for the right one. And I did that, and it kind of messed things up. You're supposed to do it in a very specific way, and it's not immediately obvious, so I ended up getting stuck at certain parts. I was wondering what happened, what's going on here, and then after a bit of research, I figured it out. This is the only game where you kind of need a walkthrough, as opposed to the other two. There is there's a recommended order for some things in the first one, there's a recommended order for certain things in the second one, and in this one, I guess there is a specific order in some cases where you need to see both outcomes and see how they determine how they go. But that's the main gripe with it. The other thing is, well, the other two entries were visual novels. This one is just basically cutscenes. There's very few puzzles in it, and it's much shorter than the other two games. I say that, but I clocked in at 22 hours even on the save, and in Virtue's Last Reward I was at 33 hours or something, and I forget how long I took in 999 initially, but it felt a lot longer for whatever reason. Again, it's fine. It is what it is, but yeah, this one was super, super different because, again, it's told in little vignettes. The main gimmick is that you are going to be injected with a anesthetic and you're going to forget the last 90 minutes. So you don't know what happens when. So you're just as lost as the characters. And while that's a cool thing, it leads to a lot of things happening out of order and out of your control, and you're hopping around a lot, you're trying to figure things out. And if you're looking for a very specific story, you're going to have a hard time remembering certain things. My main motivation for beating this game is because I wanted to read the hell out of the wiki afterwards, and I did. So right now I have it open on my phone. I'm on the wiki page for this, and oh my gosh, there are some, like, there are certain things that, like, I was told it's not as good, but you are not prepared for certain things in this game. There are different canon endings, some that lead. So this game is set between 999 and Virtue's Last Reward. It's the weird middle one, and certain things that you like one of the endings leads to the events that happens in Virtue's Last Reward, and it's wild to see that happen and come true. But also, is that really canon? Because the true ending is just completely different, and like there's a whole slew of other things that like happen during this time, and it's just like big spoilers here. Like if you I've remained kind of like minor spoiler free, but like if you're actually serious about like playing these games, these are massive spoilers here. Like this is the biggest spoiler in the game, so you've been warned. Yeah, so one of the main characters that you're playing as, Diana, she's teamed up with two other people, Sigma and Phi, who are from Virtue's Last Reward, the previous game in the series that takes place in the future. Apparently, they're trapped in this place for like, months on end, literal like a year or so. So much so that for whatever reason, Diana and Sigma end up falling for each other after being, kind of locked together. So they fall for each other. And Diana ends up having two kids, twins, one who is Phi, and the other who is Delta, the main antagonist of the story. And it's just like, what on earth? And they get sent back in time to like over 100 years ago, and then the antagonist like lives through 120 something years of life, and then Phi literally gets shot into the future another 100 years, so she's back in like 2000s and grows up as a normal like person in 2000s. Wild stuff. I was like, what on earth is happening? And the thing is, I was supposed to get this ending, but I didn't, because of the whole nonsense where it's just like, oh, you need to play these specific things in this specific order. And if you don't realize that, you don't know that, you're never made aware. It's like, oh, these story beats need to be played out in this order. If they're not, you're locked out from the rest of the story. And like, I was looking things up, and it's just like, okay, so I'm, what's the answer to this? It's like, oh, you'll get this eventually. And it's just like, if you're really hurting for it, here's the answer. So I just enter the passwords that I need to enter, and it was just like, that's it. Those are the passwords, and I remained blind, but it's just like, okay, now that I figured out how to go back and get this proper ending, oh, now I see where this password comes from. I understand now, but it was just insane how like some of these things happen. So that was the whole thing of that. Yeah, like the canon ending is just like, everybody lives, everybody like goes on with their lives and whatnot. But it's just like, some of them are wild. Like the main gimmick behind Virtue's Last Reward, big spoilers for that game, is that you are on the moon carrying out experiments to shoot somebody's consciousness back like 50 or so years, so that they can save the world. Wild stuff. Yeah. So those themes return here. People have like psychic powers or whatever. They can control the antagonist can like literally control other people. The whole thing is that there's a virus in Virtue's Last Reward that essentially decimates the population and like pretty much exterminates the human race. So that's a whole thing. It makes a minor appearance in this game, and like, you know, because somebody gets infected with the virus, that ending leads to the events of the next game, or the previous game, Virtue's Last Reward, again set between the games. Some insane stuff, just buck wild things, and it's really weird. I'm just like scrolling through like all the endings here and just seeing like if there's anything that's just. I'm glad I played it. I was told to be like temper my expectations going into this game, from the first two, saying it was not as good, and I get where people are coming from. It's good. Like standalone, it's good. There are like the gripes I had with it. They like there's definitely ways those can be resolved. The game should definitely like force you to replay those a couple of times to get everything. And because it doesn't, it's, you know, a whole thing. Had it forced me to play those, it would lead to a better experience. Like I wouldn't need to look things up, and I wouldn't feel so left out. But yeah, it's just an experience, and like other than the minor gripes, I'm glad I played it. Seeing some wild stuff in these games, and you know, I definitely say it's of the three, it's the worst. Like 9-9, like, you know, the release order is probably like the best way to play them, and it's just like the, like, you know, ranking from best to worst, it's 999, Virtue's Last Reward, and Zero Time Dilemma. Still, these are incredible visual novels that I'm glad I played, that they really mess with your head, and it's just, you know, it's bizarre, it's funky. You can go about playing the other two games and just be fine with that without touching this one, but I do feel like it does solve some mysteries, and it, you know, it's crazy. The you know, the first one, like, it feels very grounded in reality with just like some weird shenanigans going on, but the second and third one just like hey, let's just go insane and just go nuts and see what kind of sci-fi nonsense we can come up with. Again, incredible stuff. I can't say enough good things about these games. This one in particular, while it's not the best, it's definitely a great game, and I can see why it has such high praise. Given the minor gripes, I'd say definitely follow like a spoiler-free walkthrough. Like I didn't want to like any hints for it, so I didn't follow any walkthroughs. I wanted to do this one, you know, very much on my own. With the other two, I was just like, okay, what order do I play it in? And because this one is just like, oh, here are a bunch of different scenarios, I'm like, okay, I'll do this by myself and see where I go. And I feel like I suffered because of that, which shouldn't be a part of your game. If your player is suffering because they did not use a walkthrough, and is missing out on like certain story beats, I feel like that's not a good game. Like nothing, for sure, nothing is missable or anything. It's like, because you can just go back and replay a moment, but because it's just like, I was literally like nearly soft locked because like I would not have thunk to go like, okay, what if I just replay these certain story beats in a certain order? You should not have to do that. The game could force you down a certain path, and if it does force you down that certain path to complete the story beats, or if it's like, you know, it shows you or gives you something like that, It would make the game a lot better. It'd be kind of weird, but like it's understandable why it would happen, because it results in different outcomes, different stories. You'll see, but like again, it's definitely an odd one. I feel like with the other two, while like you could definitely get to certain story beats and be like, oh, I'm like, it only happens in the first game once. It's like, oh, I'm locked out of this. In the second, in Virtue's Last Reward, it happens a bunch of times that you get locked out of certain things. But because of the nature of the game, you can hop around and you just go back into that moment and be like, okay, I've experienced this ending. I can probably see what happens here. If not, then, you know, it's whatever. And the other thing is, like, because it's mostly cutscenes, you're like, if you're just want things to go a bit faster, you definitely are, like, if you press the B button, you can't, or like click the fast forward button, you can't, you're not experiencing the game to the fullest, because you like, you know, it's all cutscenes. Like, you're skipping one line of dialogue and you might end up skipping all of it. It's, again, minor thing, but like at some, like, it really felt like a bit of a slog at some points, because it's, again, it's all cutscenes as opposed to just like, oh, I can just quickly read through this. Again, minor thing. The entirety of Virtue's Last Reward is voice acted, I believe, and this one is entirely voice acted too, so it's just, it might just be a me thing. Anyway, those are my thoughts about this game. It's, go play 999, go play Virtue's Last Reward if you haven't. Sorry about the spoilers if you're watching this and like I convinced you somehow. Forget about what I said. Just ignore it. Play those games. What was it? Permanently altered my brain chemistry positive. Go do that. Have fun with that. Because that's where I'm gonna call it for today. Thank you all for watching. I hope to see you tomorrow. And until then, later.